This is the river corn mill which has been restored. Crabble. In 1819, William Phipps owned the mill at Crabble, and a guide to Dover of that date states, "At Crabble is an extensive paper mill in which there is a curious patent paper machine for making of paper of any length. This was probably the second machine ever to produce paper satisfactorily in an endless sheet, and certainly one of the first forgeries in the country. It is believed that this machine was installed in about 1807. In 1895, Crabble Mill was bought from Phipps & Sons by Wiggins Teep, and its life as a paper-producing unit ceased. This mill was rebuilt in 1896 and equipped for the preparation of rag material for the mill at Buckland. By the turn of the century, over 200 people, mostly female, were engaged in the preparation of rags. This is Mannering's flour mill, Lower Buckland. A familiar landmark in Dover is Buckland Paper Mill, especially the clock tower with its greyhound weather vane, but unfortunately its days are numbered. The earliest known photographic record shows Buckland Mill in 1770, when it produced a few hundredweight of handmade paper. In 1777, Ingram Horn, a landowner in the parish, was the owner of Buckland Mill and making paper here. In 1799, Thomas Horn is mentioned as the site owner. Then in 1814, the mill was burnt down and rebuilt. The keystone of Thomas Horn, with initials and date, is still on site. The mill changed owners several times until 1890, when Ashdown and Hopday sold the mill to Wiggins Teep & Co., who have been the owners since that date. Wiggins Teep purchased the mill to protect the supply of paper made to their specification, the world-renowned Conqueror, first manufactured in 1888. Following the takeover by Wiggins Teep, the mill saw considerable expansion, both in size and production. In 1894, a second machine capable of making paper up to 70 inches wide was built and started up. The production constantly being increased to about 40 tons per week. This would be number 2 machine, as we're seeing here. Over the years, numerous grades and watermarks have been produced on this machine. Greyhound drawing, Joinson drawing, W.T. & Co. Kent drawing, which was watermarked, die-line paper, decal-edge keys antique, covers, lampshade parchment with a high soap furnish, black overlay base paper, Conqueror, and so on. This is number 2 dryers in 1910. Washers and beaters, 1890. The Lad's Outing, 1890. As the production increased, so did the demand for power. These 6 hand-fired Lancashire boilers were made obsolete in 1956 and replaced by a Glass Chapman Great Bed water tube boiler. Inevitably, it became necessary to supplement the power by utilising electricity off the national grid. A major step was achieved in 1994 with the commissioning of the combined heat and power plant with a change from coal to natural gas. These are pulp supplies arriving from the dock at Sheerness. Pulps are purchased as a group, with supplies coming from Sweden, Portugal, and some from North America, including cotton linters. The pulp store now stands where the Lancashire boilers were once sited. Only sufficient pulps are kept on site on a just-in-time basis. Pulp is fed to both machines from this area. In 1910, Wigan Street purchased adjacent property to Buckland Mill, preferably to the erection of a new mill. This property included Buckland House, which was originally erected by Thomas Morley in 1823. Much of the land was small holding and nursery. The new mill, or as we now know it, number 3 machine, went into production in 1911, and the output for Buckland Mill was then brought up to around 70 tons. Over the years, this machine, along with number 2, has been constantly modernised, and the production of number 3 has been greatly increased. Record runs of paper, in particular high-strength tabloids, were constantly improved upon. Again, numerous watermarks were produced, and many customers' own watermarks. Contra HOA ledger papers, their marvellous sizes, large posts, double cap, double elephant, demi, double demi, etc. Plus ABC and Contra cartridges. Contra is now the predominantly produced product. Because the substance of paper is constant now, the weight per reel is taken by overall meterage. Each reel averages 13,000 meters. Imagine a sheet of paper to the top of Liverpool to Canterbury. Every step of the production is monitored. This is number 3 drive around 1910. Number 3 beta floor, 1928. This was made obsolete in the 1950s. Number 3 wire in 1928. And number 3 wet end was Harry Booth the machinist, 1955. George Cole in the back, 1955. This is one of 2 Patherband cutters. These Patherband cutters, redesigned to ideal Wigan specifications, were the first installed in the group. Our engineers and crew spent some weeks in Spain to familiarise themselves with the equipment and various improvements. These machines can produce cut to register and automatically reject faulty sheets. cutter crew circa 1900. Number 6 cutter 1955. This is a process room circa 1846. It wasn't all work. Tug of War 1910. Family Spectators 1910. Some marvellous old cricketers. This is J. Medhurst. Led by H.A. Davis, captain. This is G. Watt, W. Oliver and H. Reed, all in 1909. Tug of War, 1930. Start of a track race, 1931. Can you recognise anybody? Cycle race 1931. Lady Competitors 1931. Tug of War. The untidy individual in the centre was my father, just finished his ship, 1935. Baby Show, 1933. This was the mill outing in 1920. Mill cutter is of German design and again was the first of its kind in the group. Its position cut to register is A4. Various parts have been added to make the system automatic from cutting to boxing. Made for one of our French companies. The warehouse is a shadow of its former self, and only some export orders for containers are serviced. The rest of the production is sent to Erith for further distribution, including bulk load into Europe. At one time, approximately 1,200 tons were stocked here. This is the mill reservoir. Some call it the oasis. It's now a haven for ducks and a few trout. Even our engineer's shop seems to be dying. Not even the smell of oil. Here, Nigel and David control and maintain the office computer systems, without which no payday or records. They do have backups. Buckland House.
Production outstrips demand. In our Joe Wiggins papers, fine papers, we've got 30,000 tonnes more capacity than we have demand. So Dover at present manufactures around about 21,000 tonnes. So as you can see, that 21,000 tonnes fits into the R.J. Wiggins capacity nicely. We've got potential for another 7,000 or 8,000 tonnes. So if you add that up, it comes to 29,000 to 30,000 tonnes, and that is the overcapacity that we've got in the group. So as you can see, if our production is transferred to other mills, they could fully utilise their mills and make them to be more efficient, much more cost effective. Most of the Dover brands are being transferred to our mill in Aberdeen, Stonywood. The mill is actually two mills combined, Morton and Stonywood. It's much larger site than Dover and is planned to make most of the concrete grades on the upgrade machine, which is wider and faster than both of our machines. Having worked at the mill for 33 years, with my father working here for 42 years, a lot of my social life was basically on the mill. It's very sad. Although I can see the business reasons for the closure, working with people in the mill for so long, it's hard to view the situation dispassionately. We're the most efficient, quality-conscious mill in the group, winning awards for safety, investors in people, and 2 years ago we were named the UK's best process factory. Because we're a small site, we have to shut for the sake of the rest of the company, so it's a little bit like Captain Oaks. We're walking out into the snow and we may be gone for some time. At the present time, we're trying very hard to get other companies interested in the site and the people. We've got an excellent workforce and many advantageous points in our favour. We've got power, we've got heating, we've got water, all readily available on tap. Time will tell, but of course we can't continue to manufacture as a fine paper mill because that's in direct competition with R.J. Wiggins. So whatever happens to the site, we won't be making fine papers. There's only one thing really, and as I'm representing the company, I know that the company cares an awful lot about its workforce. There's 150 people that are going into the big wide world, and on a personal note and a company note, I just want to wish everybody in the mill all the best for the future. Hopefully many people will come out on top, one or two may struggle, and we hope they come through in the end.
Right then, how long did you work at the mill?
Well, in the mill, with the firm 46 years, but in the mill itself 44 years in Dover Mill.
What changes did you see during the mill?
Well, the main one was the changes in working conditions and the decline in the number of people working here. And when I started there were somewhere about 400 people worked here in the various departments, and as they gradually did away with the rag house and the boilers and things like that for more modern systems, it went down to about 250 when I eventually left. And then I came back to the mill to work and for another couple of years, and it's, as you see, as John just said, it's down to about 150 now.
Generations of your family work at the mill?
No, nobody else except my brother, who worked here roughly the same time. And we were all sort of sailor people, and my brother and I decided to work at Paper Mill just after the war, when they were recruiting any old person, because previous to that it was a family firm, and this has gradually declined until, although there's remnants of families left, they're mostly people who haven't got a tradition of working at the mill.
Have you got any interest in more amusing stories?
Oh yeah, hundreds. Well, I'll tell you that the first I suppose it's not really amusing, but the first story I can really mention is there used to be a little store by Number One machine, and there was a chap in there. His job was to dish out cleaning materials such as soap and wiping rags and things like that. And because we were all waiting at the store one afternoon for our cleaning materials because the machine was shut, and this chap was nowhere to be found. They searched the mill. He hadn't been seen for a couple of hours, and eventually they found him in the toilet nearby with his trousers round his ankle, stone dead. But I mustn't mention names, and it was rather funny because the story went round that he had a cigarette in his mouth. He was having a smoke as well. And a wag the next day wrote a poem on the toilet wall. How can I put it? It said, he knew a little bit of French, by the way, and it said, "John Brown's body lies a smouldering in the lathe." Another story I remember, but much more recently, was a chap who must be knowing this, and he had a pigeon in his loft at home, and it used to wake him up every morning quite early, and so he went up and he dispatched this pigeon. He caught it and dispatched it, and he thought, what shall I do with the body? He put it in a plastic bag, and he brought it into the mill in his curry bag, and threw it into the boiler, the old coal boiler. And then about 2 hours later, well, 3 or 4 hours later, when he got his lunch bag out, he brought out his sandwiches, and he'd thrown the wrong bag into the fire, hadn't he? He had dead pigeons for lunch that day. And I can tell you one more quickly, because I don't want to take too much time. There was a chap worked here, and you'll know who I mean, but I won't mention names. He was noted for his flowery language. Every other word was an expletive. I mean, he'd make a sergeant major in the army blush. And anyway, another chap from the lab and I had to tell him about a new system for making up the melamine for high wet strength paper. It had been a little bit, for years, a little bit dicey to manufacture, and they cleaned the process up. Anyway, we went up to see this person and explained it to him how he did it and all this sort of thing. And he wasn't swearing, and I thought, he's reformed, he's seen God. You know, I thought he sort of seen the light. And he was talking to him for about 20 minutes, and he hadn't used any swear words. And I thought, well, this is a miracle. And then he said, now this is a complicated process. Who does all this? And we said, well, you do. And then I found out he hadn't reformed at all, had he?
Eventually, everything shuts. The machines, the doors. This is a quote from a previous issue work about 8 years ago. The modern mill is over 200 years old now. It has a proud record of achievement derived from sound management and loyal service. It is renowned for the quality of its products, and the words conqueror describe a wide range of papers familiar to fine paper users all over the world. The future, however, is not secured by looking backwards and reflecting on past successes, but rather by leading the field in the harsh world of modern competitive business. The future history of the mill will record whether we succeeded or failed to meet this challenge. It seems Dover may have failed.
Thank you.